All right, I think we will get started here. And so we're going to have a push-up contest. You guys ready? All right. No. This is Bootcamp Recruit and Develop a Team. So we did this session before, and I'm going to use an example that I used before because it's just really great. And so I apologize if you were in this class or saw the video already, but I'm not going to. Everything's not going to be the same. But one example that I'm going to actually kick it off with is the same. So why recruit? The first blank. Oh, there's a handout. It's got some Army guys on it. It was my son's favorite one, so it's in the book somewhere in the middle-ish. If you wanted to fill those out. There will be a test. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so if you can do it by yourself, is the first blank. If you can do it by yourself, your vision, that's the second blank, is too small. If you can do it by yourself, your vision is too small. All right, here's the story. You guys ready for this? I'm going to read it. So, Dear Sir, I am writing in response to your request for additional information for my insurance claim. In block number 3 of the accident claim form, I wrote, quote, trying to do the job alone as the cause of my accident. You said in your letter that I should explain that statement more fully. I trust the following details will be sufficient. I am a bricklayer by trade. On the date of the accident, I was working alone on the roof of a new 6-story building. When I completed my work, I discovered that I had about 500 pounds of bricks left over. Rather than carrying the bricks down by hand, I decided to lower them in a barrel by using a pulley, which was attached to the side of the building at the 6th floor level. Securing the rope at ground level, I went up to the roof, swung the barrel out, and loaded the bricks into it. Then I went back to the ground and untied the rope, holding it tightly to ensure a slow descent of the 500 pounds of bricks. Brother Bob Lee, do you see where this is going? You will note in block number 22 of the claim form that my weight is 150 pounds. Due to my surprise at being jerked off the ground so suddenly, I lost my presence of mind and forgot to let go of the rope. Needless to say, I proceeded up the side of the building at a very rapid rate of speed. In the vicinity of the 3rd floor, I met the barrel coming down. This explains my fractured skull and collarbone. Slowed only slightly, I continued my rapid ascent, not stopping until the fingers of my right hand were 2 knuckles deep into the pulley. By this time, I had regained my presence of mind and was able to hold tightly to the rope in spite of my pain. At approximately the same time, however, the barrel of bricks hit the ground and the bottom fell out of the barrel. Devoid of the weight of the bricks, the barrel then weighed approximately 50 pounds. I refer you again to the information in block 11 or 22 regarding my weight. As you might imagine, I began a rapid descent down the side of the building. In the vicinity of the 3rd floor, I met the barrel coming up. This accounts for the 2 fractured ankles and the lacerations of my legs and lower body. This second encounter with the barrel slowed me enough to lessen my injuries when I fell onto the pile of bricks. And fortunately, only 3 vertebrae were cracked. I am sorry to report, however, that as I lay there on the bricks in pain, unable to stand, and watching the empty barrel 6 stories above me, I again lost my presence of mind and let go of the rope. The empty barrel weighed more than the rope, so it came down upon me and broke both of my legs. I hope I have furnished information sufficient to explain why, quote, trying to do the job alone was the stated cause of the accident. Sincerely, a bricklayer. So, that's why we recruit, is you can't do the job alone. If you can, then you're not doing a big enough job. So extend the impact. That's the second blank there. Extend the impact and the influence of your ministry. And you do this through having a team. And so, Brother Julian, you were just talking about in the altar work, I have found this to be the case. We have, I guess I maybe should have started with this, but we have a staff. We do ages 5 through 11 in our Sunday school. We run 10 on a Sunday, 10 staff on a Sunday. But we have a staff roll of about 30 or 35 people that we rotate through. So we have a large staff roll of people. And with that, it's almost all positive. It's almost all good. But with that rotation, you find that some staff are much stronger in certain areas. And so I have had it where sometimes it comes times for the altar, and I'm looking around, I'm like, ooh, none of these people are the strong, they could pray, but they're not the ones that I typically would, go to for praying people through. And so they need more development. And so if you don't have a staff, and going back to if you can do it alone, your vision is too small, is maybe you're thinking, I just want to pray Billy through. I just want to pray Billy through, but you don't see Sally and Susie and Bobby. How you like my names? Okay, so that's why. How to recruit. So I put a thing, I saw this somewhere, I think it was for youth ministry, but do they run when they see you coming? and so I talked to somebody clear on the other side of the U.S., and we were talking about staff development, and they were just like, man, how do you get so many men in your Sunday school? Because we have a lot of guys in our Sunday school. And first thing is ask. But a lot of times, he was kind of could relate to this. Do they run when they see you coming? He's like, they're just not interested. So one of the things is show and tell, shatter preconceived ideas. So there's a couple things I want to give an example with this is a lot of times when I talk to people about being in Sunday school, their perception, and it's Brother Booker's fault probably, their perception is like, I can't act, I can't be silly and goofy like that, I can't sing, I can't, and so they a lot of times think that that's all that it is, and that's a lot of it, but they think that's all of it that it is. And so we had a guy in our church, and I found out through his wife, we do this big event at our church that's like a production event, with a play and everything. And he said that he would really like to be in Sunday school, but he didn't want to volunteer because he was scared that if he volunteered for Sunday school, he would be asked to be on stage in this event. So it's really funny. He's been, well, not here, but in Redlands. So he's been to the seminar before. He's a major part of our Sunday school now, and he acts on stage at our event. But so he finally came around. But it didn't start with just like, throwing him out there. We helped him, we developed him, and he, started with small little bit parts, just, like the sidekick guy or whatever, and then slowly, worked around to, I remember the first time, one of our guys, you would never guess it now, but the first time he taught a lesson, he had always been these characters, oftentimes the goofy dunce character, and then he had to teach a lesson, he saw it on the script, he was like, wait, I'm teaching the lesson next week? I'm like, yeah, you're ready, and he didn't feel like he was, but, okay, so show and tell. Okay, that was all one example. Then the other side of it is we did a theme, just a few years ago we did a theme. It was actually an Esther theme. And there was a guy that wanted to volunteer for Sunday school for the opposite reason. He wanted to be a part of a big production and wanted to get some experience. So he came back there, and now we're blessed. I'm not bragging, I'm just giving an example. So we're blessed to have a lot of things that we didn't have in the beginning. But he came back, excuse me, he came back there, and I think one of the first things was the microphones. We have these Countryman style headset mics. And he was like, all this for the kids? And, we say we do it for the kids, but his perspective, and he wasn't being mean, but he just was surprised. He was like, you do this for the kids? Like, you buy these things for the kids? For the, to do the ministry for the kids? And then he came back where our costumes are, and we just have all these costumes and wigs and all this for the kids? And before that, we do practice every Sunday morning. And he was like, we got to be there for practice just for the kids? So it was, and I might be overdoing it, but it was basically like several times he asked, like, all this for the kids? And he was just shocked and blown away that we did this level, whatever level that is, but we did this level of investment for the kids. And so it shattered a preconceived idea that he had. And so if you can show and tell and shatter those preconceived ideas, I think that's a lot of times why people run, is they're like, I'm not goofy. I don't want to be goofy. But there's all kinds of areas in Sunday school. And then what happens is you're like, okay, well, can you run the sound? And they run the sound, and sometimes the sound man ends up being on stage, and he's goofy. It's breaking that ice. Okay, get the right people on the bus. Get the right people on the bus. Now, here's what this means. This comes from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, The Concept Does. But getting the right people on the bus is about, like, I might need a good Samson, but it's not necessarily about having the actor that can play that role so much as it is about having people that are invested, people that are interested and have a passion. Because I can take somebody that's not would not make a good Samson, for that example, and they're invested and they have a passion and they're on a seat on the bus somewhere. I can make anything out of that. We don't believe in cross-dressing, but we had a woman one time, and you wouldn't know it. She had a robe on, but she had a beard, and she was feral because we didn't have enough staff. And I know we probably could have done a girl version, but we just, and none of the kids knew. But she had a passion, and she's like a legend in our Sunday school. She just had some medical stuff, so she's not in our Sunday school right now. But she was one of those right people on the bus. You get the right person on the bus, and you can turn the world upside down. All right. Okay, so boot camp. So this is, the blank there is how staff development works. And I'm not the authority on this at all, but I have been doing it for a little while. And I tend to make the mistake. I do have something somewhere here about being born in the fire, but, right there at the bottom of that section. So I make the mistake too often of somebody comes on, they're going to help, and I just like want them to go for it. Just do it, and so I kind of bring my work environment into Sunday school, I guess. And it's not the right thing to do, but so that's a mistake that I make is often I'll be like, okay, here you go, hand them the paper and make it happen. Staff development, I have learned that one thing is you have to say something that you want to get across until you're just like sick of saying it, and you're sure that everybody else is sick of you saying it. But they're like, oh, did you say that before? And so we have a couple young ladies right now that we're doing. I'm doing an experiment, and I even told them. I said, you're the lab rat. I'm experimenting. And so I have them going through. I had them shadow. My daughter runs our costume room and our backstage area, and how our Sunday school runs. It's kind of like not at the level of a theater production, but at the style of it. And so we have lockers and costumes, and there's the segments are like 2 minutes, so everything's moving very quickly. And so she'll be like, okay, you got 10 seconds. You're going to crash out there and do all of this. And so it's kind of a hectic environment and a lot of stuff. So I had these girls one at a time shadow them, and then my son runs we do sound effects basically 100% of the time through. We have tracks and theme tracks and sound effects. And so I had some of them shadow him. And then it's kind of hard to shadow an actor. Like, what's that person doing on stage? But I had them kind of, in fact, that was the first time they just sat in the back and watched. And then I had them, we have what's called facilitators that are kind of crowd control. And so then I've been going through with them, and I kind of made a list just on my phone of like, okay, let's look at our seasoned veteran staff, and let's look at all the things that need to be improved. And because it's like when you teach something, you learn it better yourself, right? And so it's this kind of the same thing as I'm like, okay, I want to show her that this could be better. And since I'm, often I'm looking at it like just myself, and I'm saying, okay, this could be better, that could be better. But I find that when I'm showing her, I'm finding all kinds of stuff. I mean, that list grew way bigger than it should be. And so all these things that need to be improved and need to be better. And so this is my experiment in developing them so that they can see it. It's almost kind of a top-down instead of a bottom-up. They're seeing it through the leader's eyes. They're seeing like all of these things. Maybe we do some of these things and they're wrong. They're not the right way to do it. And so hand in hand with that, the secret to becoming irreplaceable is to replace yourself. I have been working in the workforce since I was 14 years old. And this is so true. I have worked with people that had the attitude that, well, when this project is over, we're going to be out of work, so we better milk it and make it just go as long as possible. And I've always worked, thankfully, my dad put this in me, to work hard and no, we're going to get it done. But the thing is, people see that. And so I have worked and developed other people to take my job. And I've never been out of a job because of that. And so the secret to becoming irreplaceable in your Sunday school ministry is to be constantly replacing yourself. I see it here with Brother Booker. He's the lead on the Sunday school, but you guys run it all the time when he's not here. And so that's a classic example, is developing other people where they can run it. I'm a youth leader at our church too, and we have a big youth event happening tonight. I'm not there. They can run it. It's fine. And so with that, I will say that a lot of times when you're leading something, you want it to be just right. Like, I feel this sounds arrogant, and maybe it is, but this sounds arrogant, but I feel like I can do the job of all the people that are in our staff, all the different roles, running the sound effects, being an actor, teaching the lesson, praying in the altar, working backstage. I feel like I can do all those jobs better than any of them. It might not be true, but I feel like I can. But the thing is we want to develop people where they can do it better. It's been a couple years ago. You guys use ProPresenter here, right? So ProPresenter for the screens. We had a girl that ran it, and she left the church, and so I knew a little bit about it, and I got my fingers in everything in the church. So I jumped into it a little bit and got a team together and started training. So we have like 5 people, maybe more than that, about 7 people that run it. And so we had a meeting not too long ago, and we're training a new person, and I was trying to show him something. I'm like, I don't know how to do this anymore. When I was training him, I was the authority on it. I knew how to do it. And so I'd call somebody over, hey, can you show us how to do this? But that's how it should be. Not that, as a leader we get lazy and don't stay on the cutting edge, but I'm just saying it should be where we're developing people where they're the expert. Because I lead you back to the first one. If you could do it by yourself, your vision's too small. If you can do everything that you're doing in the ministry, then you need to break out a little bit more. Okay, where are we at on time? So I got 10 minutes, right? Is that right or not? 5 minutes. All right, here we go. So advanced training. The goal is more important than the role. So this kind of goes back to getting the right people on the bus, is just knowing that the goal, what we're trying to do, is more important than don't get caught up in the specifics. Don't get caught up in the specifics like that person is, they can only run the sound. Oh, I do have 10 minutes? Oh, look at that. Okay. And so don't get caught up in all of those specifics. If you have a team, the right team on the bus that is passionate and they want to be involved, they want things to happen, you can take them just about anywhere. One of the things, we do a lot of acting. Our Sunday school is kind of built on acting. And so we just recently, we had a guest preacher, and our Sunday school typically goes an hour, maybe a little hour and 10 minutes or something. Well, this guest preacher sang first and then preached, and I was checking the cameras, and he was preaching up a storm. It was awesome. But he preached kind of long, and then they had altar service. We were at an hour and 40 minutes. So our script is designed for an hour, and we usually don't finish. We usually don't quite finish, or we kind of have to speed up our last few segments. So we had to do filler. And so we had, and it wasn't scripted filler. It was just like random. So we, off the cuff, my daughter does a songs with a group of kids. So she had them come on stage. We did 2 songs. While they're there, I had 3 guys come back, and we're huddled in the sound booth like, okay, let's do it. And we're trying to think. I said, okay, let's do Good Samaritan, because that'll take some time. You got the bandits, planning their attack, and you got the traveler and all the people. So they made it happen. They went backstage, grabbed costumes and everything, and made it happen. So we have the right people on the bus, at least that Sunday. So I say, coming back to the goal is more important than the role, is just understand where we're going and what we're doing. And then kind of on the other side of that is coming back to kind of what Brother Julian was talking about. Sorry, I got sick right before I came here. So all of this stuff, and of course we're really big on decor at our Sunday school. All of this stuff is awesome. And I do truly think it makes a difference. I think when kids walk in to a classroom and it's just immersive and it's decor everywhere, it makes a difference. Like, they're excited about it. They're invested right off the get-go. And it sets the tone for everything else. But if we do all of that and we forget about the altar, then what is the point? So we have a saying in our Sunday school that everything points to the altar. So sometimes our segments, like let's say offering, is not detailed out at all. It's a bullet point. But in our practice, I'll mention something. I'll be like, hey, remember that today's lesson is, forgiveness, whatever. Today's lesson is forgiveness. So if you can tie that in when you're doing, in your 2 minutes, if you can tie that in, and everything points to the altar. And so remember that the goal is more important than the role. The goal is more important than the script. We use timers in our Sunday school, and I think it's a 6-minute timer for the altar portion. And the rule that we use for that is, I know this doesn't happen here, but in our Sunday school, sometimes altar service is just, it's not great. And so when it's not great, we say, you must push it to the full 6 minutes. So that's our rule, where the timer is a rule. You have to push it at least to the 6 minutes. Because what happens is sometimes you get to 5 minutes and it breaks. Something breaks, and you go over. And that's the other rule, obviously, is if kids are being picked up and they're praying in the altar, that's fine with us. So that's the other thing, is the timer goes out the window if not if God is moved. God is always moving, but if the kids are responding. All right, that was a long explanation for the goal is more important than the role. Okay, so finding the sweet spot. Now, so with finding the sweet spot is this is kind of like what I was talking about with these girls that I'm running them through, is finding the sweet spot. I want, what my goal is, I brought people on before where it's like, okay, you're coming in to do just this job, and then they kind of branch to others or whatever. And so what my goal is with these girls that I was talking about that are my lab rats is I want them to actually do all of the jobs. But then there's going to be something that they're good at, that they shine. They're extra good at that job. So there's a story about John Wooden. He was a basketball coach, famous basketball coach, I think in LA or something, college basketball. And they had, I can't remember the statistics, I didn't have this in my notes, I just thought of it, but it's something like they just had back-to-back championships and all this thing. So one of the things that he would do with his players is he would watch them in practice. And I don't know if it was a concrete floor or what, but this is what I read, is he would watch them in practice and he would notice, he'd be watching, you, Brother Bob Lee, he'd be watching how you shoot and where you shoot from. And he'd see that you would default to a certain area on the court where you always made it. And he would go down on the court, make a circle, and he said, you shoot from right there and nowhere else. You only shoot from there. It's my job to design plays that get you there. I thought that was so powerful. And so if we can work through with our, like these girls, if I can work through and they learn all the jobs, I want them to be versatile and know all these jobs. But then if I find Brother Julian that this one lady, she can work with kids on the altar, then it's my job to design plays and design scripts that get her to the altar where she can work with kids. So, finding that sweet spot. All right, special forces. I think we're out of time. 3 minutes, right? Is that where we're at? Okay, so make a statement. And basically what I mean by this is, there was a time, when was that? Like early 2000s, when like mission statements were all the rage. And I'm not against mission statements. I love them. But the point with this is kind of going back to what I said about you can repeat a mantra and you feel like you're just like, they are so sick of hearing this. And they're like, did you say that like before? And so make a statement and you got to show the direction over and over and over again. And as Sunday school leaders, this should come from your pastor. Now, what I mean by that is your pastor isn't running Sunday school and probably doesn't want to deal with it. But seek the direction of your pastor. Seek what the direction, he's like, I talked about this before, but with youth ministry, I used to, way back when I first started running youth, I had these cool ideas and wanted to come and show my pastor and convince my pastor about my cool ideas. And often I did, because he's very gracious. But I've learned that, no, it's what is his vision and how can I implement that? That's my job. And so make a statement. And where I was going with that is a lot of times it's a lot easier to champion your own ideas than somebody else's ideas. But if you can learn to meld those into your own, then you can make that statement with conviction. The pinnacle, so the pinnacle of ministry, in my mind, the pinnacle of ministry, and I'm not there by any stretch of the imagination, but I guess a step of it is where you have staff pouring back into you, where you have staff that are helping you. And like I use the example about where that one lady is better at ProPresenter than I am, better than what I know. Sorry. When they pour back into you, when they develop to the place where they can help you and be a help to you. Okay, running out of time. Don't stop now. Oh, I'm out of time, but I can't stop. No, I'm just kidding. So once you reach that point, then I think that every once in a while we need to step back and, like the very beginning, the example of the bricklayer is if you can do it all yourself, your vision is too small. If I talk about this a lot, like on a podcast, I mentioned it, but is if you can look back, and you have to look way back for your last failure, and I don't mean moral failure, I just mean like your mess, like your last object lesson that fell apart or whatever. But if you have to look super far back to your last failure, you're not pushing hard enough, in my opinion, my humble opinion. Maybe it's just because I fail a lot. I'm trying to justify it. I don't know, but we should be failing forward. And then I just put a thing there. Are we there yet? Are we having fun yet? Because it's not a destination. This is what we do, day in, day out. This is what we do. And that's my time. All right.